Hi there. How are you doing tonight? Well, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining me for another virtual Create and Sip, where tonight we will be painting through this black cat and bottle. It's a very vibrant painting, gets you all ready for fall weather and Halloween. So it should be a lot of fun. If you've never painted before, this will be something that you should easily be able to walk through with me. And if you need to do some sketching on through there, I can talk about that as we go. But if you've got your kit from me, your painting should already be sketched as well as have background color to it. You should also have the paints that we'll be using, which on your screen you can see over here, that we will be using white, red, black, yellow, green, and blue. Doesn't matter which colors you've got for those, if you've got a green oxide or a phthalo or anything like that. But you should be able to paint along using then only 3 brushes is what we're going to use. We're going to use the large, flat, the medium flat, and the small round. A few things that you will need from home is one, a apron or a shirt you don't mind getting any paint on, a jar of water, and I like to use a mister here. Yeah, this one isn't going to work. So I was actually got a hold of used to have hand sanitizer in it, but it does really nice for just giving a quick mist of paint or water onto your paint. So if you've got our painter's pack, you'll have your brushes in through that in there, and then palette will come with the painter's pack, and just with the kit, with the canvas kit, you'll get these little jars of paint. So again, we'll just be using the yellow, red, black, green, and blue. And if you don't have a palette, like I said, you can just use a paper plate or styrofoam plate, even just some wax paper. If you want to throw some wax paper on the table and use that, just anything so you don't get it on the table. So if everyone's got those things, which I guess I can give you a moment to gather yours, but the most important part about creating and sipping is having your sips. So I got me some adult coffee going on this evening. Cheers to you. Let's get to creating and sipping. So your canvas should have, if you've got it from me, the image of the cat and the bottle sketched onto it. It's kind of hard to see in that light there, but if you don't have one, you don't have to worry about sketching it on right now, because you can break these into shapes to paint in over your background, because the colors are much darker than your background there. But what I want to do first is I like to give my canvas a little misting of water, and that just helps that paint to spread across our background a little bit easier as we mix those paints in. Now on my palette, I've got these paints set up in an order of white, yellow, red, green, blue, and black, which is pretty much the order that we'll be using them. Now, if you stand while you paint, do be cautious of how you hold your palette, because you don't want that dripping onto your feet. And I'm going to take and just lightly wash my brush out, get those bristles a little wet. Wipe that off on my paper towel. Better pull one of those off first, right? Get that there. Okay. So I always like to touch my brush to my paper towel just so I don't have any excess water, so I don't get any runs or drips on through there. What I'm going to do first to get that yellow to sit really, really bright on my background is I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. And you can start with just some straight white on there. on your canvas, just brush that in. And I'm going to exhaust the paint out of my brush. And if you'd like, you can paint around the edges as you go. This is what we call a gallery wrapped canvas, which means the staples are on the back instead of on the sides. So you can paint the edges as you go or at the end so that your painting just looks more finished and ready to hang on the wall, unless you've already been eyeballing a frame for it. And I'm next going to take straight yellow and I'm going to brush that in right over my white. And that mixes with it a little bit, and that's all right. But we want that yellow to be super bright and bold. That way it shines nice in our background there. You see how bright yellow this one here is, and the one in on the screen there for you to look off of. So if you need, I definitely suggest watching this on a big screen so that you can see a lot better. Cast it to your TV if need be. And at any point in time as we're painting, if you need to, if I'm going too fast, you can always press pause right down there and even rewind. It's a really nice thing that Facebook's got now where you can rewind live streams, and that way you don't fall behind. You don't have to try and keep up as I paint along. But I'll try and keep it at a fairly decent speed so that you can keep up. And I'm going to continue bringing my yellow down. If you've got the sketch on there, I'm going to do my best to paint around some of this, but you don't have to worry about any mess ups if you do get any, because actually was talking earlier, you'll be able to paint some shapes in to fill all that in to make your bottle and your cat. So very simple shapes for as we create those. And if you do get your whole background painted in and you paint over where those are, I recommend using a piece of chalk to sketch in over your background painting. That way you can paint over the top of that chalk and that chalk wipes off really easily. You don't have to worry about graphite from a pencil or anything muddying up your colors as you work across through there. I've got my yellow that I brought down a little bit farther than what I wanted. That way as I bring my red in, I can blend to get that orange. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red here. As you can see on my brush, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red. And I'm going to start right back here and I'm going to start bringing that up into my corner. Now don't come too far up into it. You don't want to eat away all that yellow that you just put in there. And again, it's okay if you paint a little bit over some of your drawing and outlines there. And I'm just going to spread a little bit of that red in and then brush that back. Now I'm using the tips of my bristles to push that paint a bit. That way I can just kind of move that right along and I don't have to worry about trying to do too much pulling it in places I don't want it to go. So I can even grab some of this here and place it right in there. And I want to keep kind of a sweeping motion, kind of a radiant movement of my brush strokes from the corner, from one corner down to the other corner. And I can, got a little bit of red on my brush, so I can always grab some more yellow, and that'll mix some of that out and create that orange. And I'm going to work that yellow right over that red again. And you can bring that orange down as far as you like, or even the red up as far as you want. This is your black cat and bottle painting. So if you want to change it up any, go ahead and do that. It's your painting. Make it yours. And bring some of that orange down into that bottom section there. One thing that's nice about this background is it's kind of choppy. It's painterly. You can see the brush strokes in through the background there. You can especially see it in the example that I've got on the screen. You can see where some of that orange has even been brought up into the yellow. So you can always bring some of that in if you want, and I'm bringing a little bit of yellow down into my red there, or well, my orange. And I'm going to paint this side of my bottle and cat's tail. And I'm going to start going a little more red into it. And what's nice with this acrylic paint is while it's still wet, you can blend really, really easily to make those colors mix. If you need to, you can wipe off some of that excess paint on your paper towel. If you've got too much red on there. And I painted over my tail just a bit, but that's okay. We'll paint that black in over the top, and it'll actually make that tail look in front of our background. So I'm going to get this little bit down here. And that's more of a pure red there. Bring some of that around sides there. And then you can even do the bottom edge if you like while you're going. I would be cautious though, as it may try and glue itself down to the bottom of your easel, this little trough area here. But if you save it for last, you can always bring those colors down underneath as needed to wrap those colors around your canvas. I'm going to come in now with some red over the top of my neck of my cat, El Gato. I don't know where my cats are here in the studio. Normally they wait till I'm in a pretty good ways before they make an appearance. They like to paint. They like to think that they're helping painting. So we're going to fill that background in, working from that red up into our orange. Remember, you can always grab a little bit more yellow if need be. And to get that red really, really bright and well, dark kind of is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to let that dry a little bit and then come back in over the top of it with more red. So the answer sometimes with acrylic paint is not just adding more paint. And we've got our blue and we've even got some black, so if we wanted to darken that up, we could very easily add a little bit of one of those two colors, because the blue and the red will make a nice dark purple. And just a little bit of black. A little bit of blue, make purple, and black will also make kind of a purplish color. But if you use too much black, you will definitely muddy up your colors. So I'm going to follow that line of the chest down into the legs. And if you're painting your background and just painting through everything, as I said before, you can sketch out on there or even just do some shapes to create your cat and bottle. So the cat is really just kind of a football shape with triangles on top and a little serpentine shape. Figure if you'd melted a bowling pin and curved it, and then your bottle, you can, if you've even got a bottle next to you while you're working on this, you can use that as an example on how to paint that in with a little collar up top, your neck and shoulders on down. And the tail is just a long cylindrical shape. So it should be dry enough now to come in and add some more red. And I'm going to pull my bristles into my orange. That way I can let those bristles kind of flick and just barely go over the top. And it doesn't necessarily blend, but it gives a little color over the top of that orange, so it does create an illusion of a blending in through there. And I'm going to go around and start hitting the rest of my background. Get the top. And just see how much more brighter and bolder that red is where that second coat is. And I'm just using a little flick stroke to just gently brush that red over my orange so it doesn't leave a hard line there and gives a little bit of a blend. And if you end up putting a color where you don't want, or you pick up a color you didn't mean to, these acrylic paints, they're great for beginners. They're great to just work with in all realms. But for beginners, they're nice because you can easily wipe the paint away with a moist paper towel while working, or you can easily let it quickly dry. You can even hit it with a blow dryer and then come in and paint over the top of it. You usually have to work really hard to do things that you can't find a creative solution for when it comes to painting with acrylic paint. So I'm going to show you the two ways to darken that red. Paint this edge real quick. Probably not the best because it's on the side I can't see. I'm going to start with the blue, just a little bit of blue in this red while it's still wet. And what I've got is an ultramarine. So I'm going to go just a small bit. I mean, you can barely see on my brush the little bit that I've got on there. And it's always best to start with a little before going to a lot. And I can just bring a couple little paint strokes in through there. I'm going to wipe that off and I'll show you what a little bit of black does. And it's just a little bit of black. I'm going to come down in this corner. And yeah, leaving a little bit went a very long way right there. But it does create kind of a purplish tint to the red. So I don't want to go too dark down there. I'm going to bring up a couple of those dark strokes into these areas here. Maybe bring a little bit of red up into my yellow there. Yeah, break up that surface a little bit. You don't want to add too much. Vary those, vary the lengths of them, the placement, and just let them kind of dip down and hide down below here. So I'm going to now rinse out my brush here. And you'll rinse your brush out if you've never painted before and this is your first time with a set of brushes. You'll always want to keep them clean and not sitting in your paintbrush water. The water will cause those bristles to curl. If you've got wooden handled brushes, it'll cause the wood to swell, which will cause some issues then with the ferrule later on. So it's just always best to keep them as clean as you can and set out to dry whenever possible. And then you can gently mash it down in the bottom of your jar to get that paint out. As you paint and your water gets to have a tint to it, you'll know when you got the paint out of your brush because you won't get paint off your brush. You may get some tinted water onto your paper towel, but if you're not pulling off any paint, then you should be all right. So I'm going to let that dry for just a second, and then I'm going to add a couple little streaks of yellow into some of these areas down in through here. Enjoy a little sip. And just while I wait, I'm going to darken this down here just a little bit. Don't worry about those draw on edges. In fact, it's always better to go a little bit over them than it is to leave space between your painting and the sketched line. And you're going to be painting over the top of that, so it's best to, be painting over that line so that it all blends in or sits in on top of your background. Okay, so that top part there looks pretty dry. And you'll be able to tell looking, from an angle, if it looks shiny, it's most likely still wet. Depending on the acrylic paints that you've got, some of them will dry with kind of a matte color, others will still look kind of glossy. But usually you can definitely tell what's still wet and what's not. So we got a little bit yellow on the tips of my bristles here, and I'm using that chiseled end of my brush to lay these little lines in. And I'm just going to lay a few little streaks here. Try not to get too over the top with it. Bring some into my yellow there too, and orange. Oh, that was still wet a little bit. So we'll wipe some of that red off. And it's alright if you get some little thick strokes in through there, that's okay. We're just breaking up that background with some movement of these lines radiating out of our background. I'll just leave that. And yeah. Use a little finger painting. And I think that'll look pretty good for a background. You can step back at any point in time, see how your painting looks from a distance. It will always look a little bit different from a few feet away, more than it will, the few inches that you're working on it. And we're always our own worst critic, so don't beat yourself up over the little things. Take a step back. If you notice it from a distance, maybe then, try and change it. If you don't notice it from a distance, it's probably not worth starting an argument with. A lot of times, the painting wins. So to let this dry, our next step is going to be to go and paint in our bottle. It's got the green in the background as well as it's got black. The example on the screen has some blue highlights in through there to show that transition down the center, and then we'll paint some of that in, and then we'll let that dry as we go in and paint our cat, and then we'll come back to some of those details. Now, since yellow is in green, I'm not too worried if I still have a little bit of wet yellow on my canvas, but I'm going to load the tips of my bristles with some green. Basically, I just tapped both sides into the green. I'm not going all the way up to the ferrule. You don't want to fill your brush up that full. Just up at the tips of the bristles, about halfway down the bristles. And I'm going to start by finding the neck and edge of my bottle. And I can find the back of my cat. I'm going to find that other edge. And I am using the tips to kind of push that paint out towards that line. That way I'm not trying to use the side of my brush to create that line, and actually be pretty right on with following that with the tips of the bristles. Now, you can use your large brush if you like to paint in the collar of the bottle. I'm going to paint the body in, and then I'm going to go to a smaller brush, my medium brush, to paint that in. So I just don't have to worry too much about the thickness of my large brush. Making it bigger than what I want. So we'll let that set and dry, and then we'll add some more colors in over the top of it. Go ahead and rinse that out real quick. And if you're drawing this on, the collar is really just a rectangular shape. Got my medium flat brush, wet those bristles a little bit. Make sure you give it a little tap on your paper towel. You don't want to be playing with drippy watercolor acrylics. And I'm pretty much just use the width of that brush to paint that collar in. I'm not worried about perspective and where it's rounded out on the top or the bottom. And then I can spread a little bit more of that green around with that. And while that green is still slightly wet, I'm just going to wipe some of that extra off on my paper towel. So I'm just going to dive right into black. I'm not going to let that dry. That way when I mix that in, it will blend, and then we can wrap that color around our bottle. Again, I'm using the tips of the bristles to come right up on the line of my bottle there. I'm going to come right up underneath the collar, and I'm just going to pull towards the inside of my bottle. And I'm starting with short strokes, and I'm gradually growing those, making them longer so that they'll blend a bit with that green. So it's all right if you create, kind of a hard line down the center of your bottle there, because we can add in that blue line. That helps to break that up. And using some vertical strokes now, I'm working into that green. I've exhausted the black off of my brush. I've got just a little bit left on there, so I'm not blending too much into it, or too much more black. Then I'm going to grab a little bit on the corner of it, and up on the top of our bottle, on the collar there, I want to paint just the bottom left hand corner, and you can make a bit of a kind of a triangular shape, and then I'm going to take the rest of that and I'm going to add it back down into the bottom for that one, then make it a little bit darker. And let me get just a little line of black across the top, or maybe that's where the inside of the bottle is. I'm just using a little corner of my brush and bring that around the bottom, show where that maybe the light's coming down, you get that shadow on the bottom there underneath the collar of the bottle. Knock off some of that black, and then do a little bit of blending down in through there. Now if you went a little heavy on the black and you need to, wipe that off real quick. It's okay if you've got to wipe a lot of it off and then paint back over the top of it. You don't want to stick with something that you're not happy with. You have the opportunity to stop and change that before you get too involved with it and then just not liking it. So again, the acrylic paints are wonderful in that fashion of being able to fix mistakes very easily. If you end up having to, just do like we all learned as kids, or even the kids today are learning, how to put a happy little tree in front of things. It's all on your perspective on what you've got. If you can find a way to turn that frown upside down and turn a mistake into a great, happy accident, or as I like to say, some of the best things are accidentally on purpose. Hardest part is purposely doing it on accident. And so if you see some of those things, roll with it. That's half of painting, is learning how to roll with what you got. No painter is perfect, so no sense in trying to be perfect. Painter, just be yourself and have fun while painting. Want to change some things up as you go? Let loose. Feel free to do so. So I've got my bottle painted in, and we'll be adding highlights of the blue and the yellow in on the edges, a little bit of white too maybe. But the next thing that we're going to be painting in is the cat. So I'm going to cheers to that. And I'm going to start with the head, and I'm going to use my medium brush. If you feel like using your little round pointer brush first to maybe go around the eyes, you can definitely do that, but it also allows you to get more of the shape of that head in, which is, as I said, kind of like a football shape. I'm going to paint it over on that side, so we'll move that around like so. And if your brush is bristly and you get some little splayed bristles, it's all right. This is a cat. Cats are furry. May have some stray hairs running around, especially if it's a stray cat. Yeah. Yeah, my jokes are even worse in the studio. So I've got the outline of the head done in there, and I can then start working around those eyes. I use my pinky as a kickstand at times to hold my hand steady as I paint a line with the brush. You just want to be cautious not to have wet paint under your finger, because you may smear it or pick it up and then deposit it someplace that you didn't want it. So just be cautious of that. It's nice to know that little trick. Just a little pinky kickstand. Oh, I felt some wet red there. And as you're painting, you have the ability to move your canvas around any which way you need. I'm trying not to get myself in front of this camera here as I paint so that you can see what I'm doing for the most part. And you can flip it upside down, you can move yourself to the side, twist your canvas as needed, to be able to get to some of those edges a little bit better. They're not nailed down to the easel. And I'll actually just paint like that. I will paint like I would. I just will try not to get in the way of cameras for you. Let's see, that one I'm gonna go ahead and flip you upside down to make those. There we go. And again, if your bristles are a little splayed and getting into those little tiny spots down in the tip of the ears there or something, you can save those spots and hit it with the smallest brush, your little round pointy brush. So it works really nice to get in some of those little tight spots. I've got a little bit of color that didn't make it down in. I'm just going to widen that ear out just a little bit. Be careful, because a little bit can go a long way sometimes, and I don't want to give him great big ears. Although some of those cats with big ears, I don't even know what the names of them are, but they're like naked wrinkly cats. They've got some big ears. I think it's just because you got no fur on their body to make themselves look smaller. If you've got one of those cats, sign up for a Paint Your Pet. Come in and let's paint that cat together. I'd like to see that and experience that and try and help you out, because that would be a fun challenge. As I paint across on my cheeks here, I can just do a little line with the edge of my brush. I can go ahead and paint those little whiskers in. And they just kind of follow that curve of the face, and then a little third one, it comes right out of the point there. Point. That is a great movie. Sorry. That just popped in my head. If you haven't seen that movie before, I highly recommend watching The Point. Oobly. The only kid without a pointed head in his town. I believe it's narrated by one of the Beatles. I can't recall. But the whole movie, the point is about there not being a point, to having a point. I've got my head sketched in, painted in. I'm going to leave those eyes. If you painted a little bit over your eyes, that's quite all right. If you painted completely over your eyes, that's all right too. We'll let that dry. We can paint white and then yellow over the top of that. So don't get discouraged. I'm going to find that front bit of the body. And again, I'm using, the edge of my bristles, and I'm pulling those down to follow that line. And here I'm going to, kind of like we did up in the whiskers up here, I'm going to allow bits of that to go out over the front. So little puffs of fur coming off of the chest of the cat, maybe. And then we can start filling that in. Almost dipped my brush into my drink there. If you do that, just try not to do it again. But these paints, if you've got them from me, they, for the most part, non-toxic. I wouldn't recommend eating it, but if you do get a little bit in your wine or your coffee or your tea or what have you that you're sipping on, you won't die from it. And you can usually, it'll float on the top of your wine. You can pick it off. But I do try not to have my water jar and my drink too close together. But you wouldn't be the first, nor will you be the last. And I think it's all part of getting initiated into being a painter. Because you will find yourself possibly doing it often until you have mentally trained yourself not to do that. And at times, some artists, they keep 2 bottles or 2 jars of water around, one to wet their brush with so that they don't have a lot of color in that water, and then the other jar to rinse their brush out in. That way you can just fill it full of color. So when you get to painting a lot and you use a lot of colors and you're painting big canvases, that's something you may consider doing. And if you don't have one of these little misters that I've got, you can use, just a basic spray bottle, like what may mist your plants with, or your hair, or, there's a lot of purposes for spray bottle. Again, that'll help to keep your paints a little wet so that they'll flow off of your canvas. Oh, I might be getting a little carried away on fur on that, so I'm going to stop. And I'm going to flip this canvas upside down so I can get that back neck of my cat there. And I'm Just using the tips of the bristles again. I don't have a lot of paint on there, but if you do, you can start back and then work your way forward, or you're not depositing a bunch of paint in that one little spot. And get a little hiccup, but that's okay. We'll bump it back there and try and even it out, but don't fight it. Fill in that little spot there where the bottle comes down. And rotate this just a little bit more so I can get that edge. Put my finger where it's not going to be in the paint. And down like that. And then I'll start filling in that neck. And work my way down into the rest of the body. Now while I've got this here, if I wanted, I could come in and start outlining my tail. And the tail is kind of pushy in the examples, so definitely don't worry too much if you get, you know, some little splays. And as you play with your brush and you learn it, you learn how to just barely pull on the bristles, and you can let those bristles actually make those nice textured shapes for you. Those little furs that pop out. And I do want to come in a little close to my bottle. Thankfully that's the dark edge, so don't have to worry too much about painting over the edge of the bottle. And while I've got it upside down, if you're painting your bottom, you can come around and do that. I am going to flip this back over, so I don't want to have a bunch of wet paint down on the bottom of my canvas, because a lot of that, this will make it stick to the bottom of your easel. Which is kind of another fun thing about acrylic paints, is because it can act as a glue. You can, I've got a super fluffy tail going on there now. But you can use it to actually glue things to your canvases. If you wanted to do like some mixed media or some collage, you can you could try that. Just brush on some paint and then brush on, you know, the picture, or you know, you get thick enough acrylic paint, you can even press things into it and get it to stay. I just pressed my thumb into my paint. Lots of fun things you can do with acrylic paints. So once you get a hold of a set of your own, you can play with the cheap paints if you want. You won't get the best, brightest color out of it, but they're good for learning, you know, at least basic practicing the paint, blending colors, learning how to lay down brush strokes. But as you get into some of the more expensive paints, medium and the heavy-bodied paints, you'll definitely notice big differences between them, especially the quality of the blended colors. They don't get muddy as fast blending them together. Unless, of course, you know, you're blending purple and orange together, and you're pretty much going to end up with a mud. So I've got that little bit of my bottle that is not have any green on towards the back of my cat, and I'll add some more of that in. In fact, it's a really great spot to have a highlight. So I'm going to try and line my tail up where it comes through the bottle there. And if you need, you can use your handle of your brush it's all right if this doesn't look absolutely perfectly lined up. Maybe it curls a little bit behind the bottle. And that would be a spot where stepping back and seeing how it looks from a distance would be key. And I can paint my tail around the edge here. And just give that little serpentine shape some form and mass. Oh, I'm going to turn this around so I can get a better edge on that side of the tail. Yeah, just to see, yeah, that'll look better. And just gently touch to it, lay my mark. So that comes down, yeah, let's say that works good. Maybe he got in a fight and got a little crooked tail going on there. A story of his own to tell. Now I'm going to finish filling in the body of my cat. Turn this around for that. And if you feel like using your large brush is going to cover that area a little bit better, definitely go to that brush. This medium will do a really nice job for filling that in, and any of those strokes end up looking like fur on the body of the cat. Gosh, this is already looking really good. That black against the red, that little bit of green in there, and this looks really nice. A little contrast to the red and the orange. And once you get your cat all filled in, take a step back, see how it looks, see if there's any spots you want to touch up on the fur or anything. And I'm going to exhaust some of that black I've got back out onto my bottle. Bring some of that in a little closer there. All right, how's yours looking? Good, I hope. And if you've got any issues, again, you can press pause or rewind and then continue watching at your leisure and convenience. Got something that comes up, got started and forgot you put dinner in the oven, got you covered. And these videos will be available to watch afterwards. I'll have them up on YouTube, and you'll be able to even get a membership and have access to all of these as we go forward. Okay, I don't know why I picked up black. Didn't mean to. Just rinsed my brush out, and then I picked up more black. So I'm just going to go and find little spots to touch in on my cat here. Yeah. Alright, and then I'll rinse this off. And then I'm going to add a little bit more green to my bottle. And hopefully then our face of our cat is dry enough to put in eyes and maybe a nose. The example on the screen there that you see to your left, it doesn't have a nose on it. The example I've got behind me has a nose on it. One of the examples that was done by my artist here in the studio put pupils in the cat. So this is your cat. If you want to change some things up and make it more yours, definitely do that. I highly encourage you making it yours. It does not have to look just like mine or the example. So when this green is going to go on a little bit brighter over the top of that first coat that we put on. I'm going to bring it over the top of the black a little bit here in the center, just where that transition zone is at. Right. Does it look good to me? And I think while that's even wet, grab a little bit of white. Find this outside edge, make a couple little lines up and down the body there, barely touching the bristles to the canvas to make that. That's where that highlight is at. Now just find just a little bit right around the neck or the shoulder of the bottle. Again, it's where the highlight is. You know, so it's all right if you got a little bit more on there. You can always wipe some off, add some more green over the top. I'm going to find a little bit on my neck here. Get that top. Get that top. And I'll rinse that out. I'm going to go with my smallest brush, little pointy guy, to put in the yellow eyes. And if you have painted over your eyes any, you can take a little bit of white and put those right before starting with the yellow. And if you are painting with the white first, you know, just a little bit, you can go, hey dude, just because I'm painting a picture of a cat doesn't mean I need your help. And knock my easel over, or the tripod. So even just a little bit of white fills in that space some. And if you need to, you know, if you go back over the face more with that white or even the yellow and you've got to come back in with the black, that's okay. Don't get discouraged by little mistakes. So we learn from those, and that's what makes us better. So I'm going to wipe off some of that white. Don't need to rinse my brush. And then I'm going to come right in with yellow. And fill that in. And with this brush too, you can also use just the tip to make those lines around the outside edge. And so as I do so, I'm going to flip this around so I have better angle to brush the tops of the eyes. And that smallest brush, that liner brush, is the one you want to try and take the most care of, is it can get splayed very easily. That's one you definitely don't want to leave in your water jar for too long. So one of the boys is using his little scratch pad. That little edge down there. All right, I think that looks all right. Yeah. So I've got some yellow on my brush here. I can go and start adding in highlights around my cat. The ears are dry, so I can come in and create little highlights on the side that yellow is facing. So as it's to the right, you would want to paint things that are to the right for the highlights. You can add a little bit of white into it if you'd like. A little bit of highlights around there. A little bit across the top of the head. You stuck there, dude? Not anymore. studio cats. Like to nap when you're not doing anything, and then like to be rambunctious when you are doing something. So if you want, you could even add a little bit of white over next to your yellow. Bring some of that in, make a little mixture of it. So you've got just a brighter white. That white acts as like a primer underneath. And you'll see even on this, as I brush that on, yellow can be one of the most translucent colors. It's not very opaque, meaning you can't see through it very well, or well, you can see through it too well. So I'll show you what I mean on wiping stuff off. I got a little blobby blob up there on my ear. Just a wet paper towel, wipe it away. Try not to wipe it into anything, so a little bit of pressure as you wipe. That edge there is pretty nice and damp. There we go. Now I can go back in and retouch that up. I'm going to spin this around so that it's easier for me. You should always do what's easiest for you. If I show you one way to do something and you think of a better way, do it that way. If it works best for you, then that's the best way. There's always your way, my way, his way, their way, but whatever way works best for you, it's the best way. And what's nice is you can always change your mind. I'm going to lay down a highlight underneath on his neck. Come down this back. And if you've got wet black, you probably want to let that dry first. And I went a little thick on that, but that's okay. That's where his coat is shiniest and nice. Picking up that light back there. And then just on the other side of the bottle. So having this little black spot here, you can play with that if you like it, leave it. I don't like it. I'm going to go right across the back. And if you feel like you got way too much yellow on there, let it dry and come back over with some more black to clean up that line. Don't get frustrated with that part. Sometimes we start fussing with something and we overwork it, and the next thing you know, you've got yourself a yellow tabby in front of you, and not a spooky black cat. So I've got little highlights there. Again, I'm going to mix a little bit of my white with yellow, tint that down, and then I'm going to come in around my tail. I'm just barely touching the bristles to get that nice little sharp line. I'm doing that right out to an edge because this is the bottom side of the tail, so you wouldn't see any light on this edge. It'd be on the edge that then faces this bright spot here, right? So, and then you're going to come in on this part of the tail and bring that around like that. A little bit there, stop it at the bottle, and then you can give some little highlights to the little splays at the end of the tail there. I'm going to come in with some of that yellow and white, and I'm going to add just a few little highlights again on my bottle. You don't want to get too carried away with it. You still want it to look kind of dark and moody. And let's see, if you wanted to put a nose in there while you've got it, just kind of make a like a 7. A little upside down triangle with only 2 lines. And it'll look like a little nose there. So my transition zone on my bottle where the green and the black is at should be dry enough that I can put some blue in there. Now, I did pick up a lot of blue on my palette that I definitely am not going to use. And if you've got excess paint on your bottle or on your palette at the end, you can always mist that with the water and then put some saran wrap over the top of it, and that'll help keep that paint wet and keep it from drying so you can reuse it again the next day. The blue I'm going to bring in right pretty much down the center of my bottle. Actually, I'm going to add a little white to it, brighten that up some. There we go. Oh, cat. Come here, buddy. Before you go knocking everything over. Come here. Oh, Picasso. Picasso the cat always wants to paint. He thinks that he helps people out by batting at the back of their paintings while they paint in the studio. He's the funny guy. Yeah, that's nice. A little bit of bright blue, just right on that edge where be the front of the bottle. Now I'm not going to come all the way up the neck straight up. I'm going to curve just a little bit to the left and then come up the side. We can give a little bit of extra shape to our bottle. And I'm going to grab a little bit more blue and then just come right over the top of that again. Give a little bit up in on my collar and opening of it there. And maybe a little bit right there. So not a whole lot that you need, just a little bit to break up that space and line. And then I'm going to use that blue to come across on the opposite side of every place that we put the highlights in, and give the cat some extra little dark highlighted spots. And it's okay if it's a little rough. I like that look of helping it to look more like fur. And just come down that left side of my cat. I'm using, my pointed brush, and I'm just using the pointed end so I can have as much control over where that line goes as I can. I'm going to come in on the tail. This is also a great spot where if you've got a little space where it's fuzzy, fluffy, or you got a little brush marks out the side, give a little spot right over the top of that. And a little white on the edge of the tail there, but that's okay. I don't think it looks bad. I'm going to hit just a little bit on the outside of my bottle. There, just like so. And then we'll hit the sides of the ears. And I'm using my pinky as a kickstand to hold my fingers off the painting while I steady my hand. And I'm going to hit what would have been highlights on the other whiskers are now these little shadow lines on the other side. And I bring just a little bit underneath the chin there. Give the old brush a rinse. And then step back, see, what we think of it. Because this is pretty much done. It's amazing how fast time can go when you're having fun and painting along. I like to think of making art and just being creative as a bit of time travel, because sometimes you can spend 15-20 minutes on something and feel like it's 2 hours. Sometimes you can spend 2 hours on something and it feels like it's only been 15-20 minutes. So give a look over your cat. If there's any spot that you feel like you need to add some extra black lines to, or anything, highlights, or if you need to come in with some black and touch up any spots where maybe you got a little carried away with your highlights. A little spot right here. But again, I probably only notice that because I'm so close to it. So again, you step back, see how things look from a distance, a few feet away. And if need be, when you hang it up on the wall, you just set the red velvet rope, however many feet out in front of you as you want. And if you really want to, you put a little pedestal out there with a sign that says you must consume X number of beverages to properly enjoy this painting. I'm going to touch up a couple of those areas around the front side, thin out that blue line I made some just by adding a little black over the top, and just some extra little touch-ups. You don't want to get too carried away with your touch-ups and end up having to repaint some of those aspects. I do think I want to add maybe a little bit more green into these areas on my bottle. Maybe it's a little too highlighted. Squint at it a little bit too, maybe. Oh, I just picked up some green and blue, so I'm going to darken that green just a little bit with some of that blue. And just kind of mask that. Spread that around some. And now I'm going to say stop before I go too far. It's one of the hardest parts of painting, is actually kind of even making anything creative, is the knowing when to say when. Now when it comes to paint, you can go too far. You start adding things, touching up spots, and then next thing you know, you've completely changed everything, and you may or may not be happy with that. So just to be cautious, I'm going to add a little bit of blue down in the bottom here. I forgot to hit the underside of his tail. A little bit of white, a little bit of blue. And bring that around the edge. Well, it's a good time to check your edges. Make sure those are all painted if you've been painting them along as you go. Now I know that my bottom edge is not painted. As you can see, I've got maybe just that one little mark there. So that's something I can turn to the side and grab. I'm going to use my medium brush. I'm going to start with some of that red. And brush those edges on through there. If you get just a little bit over the top, that's all right. We're just trying to get those colors to blend a little bit. And then I'm going to grab my black and add that under the bottom. So it looks like my cat just wraps around those edges. Really does change the way that your painting looks. If everything goes around the sides, really does change how your painting feels, having those edges painted. See a couple little light spots. I'm going to re-go over some of that with some black while I've got it. And over that edge of the tail there. I think it is my other side here that I didn't get too well. So I'm going to rotate this over again this way. Oh yeah, I got parts of it, but not all of it. So I'm gonna make sure that all that black is rinsed off. And then go in with the reds. And if you've got some spots where you've got that color blending happening on your painting, on those edges where it wraps around, you know, you work it pretty much the way we did in the beginning. Just grabbing a little bit of color and blending that in. So I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to make that orange right into the top there. And then bring one of those little streaks around the side. Good luck with that. And that's a spot where I had a little bit of black, so I'm going to wrap that around too. That way it's consistent. A little bit of red right there. And if you're using an easel that has a little spot on the top there, you can hang your canvases off the top of that, off of the stretcher bars on the back, which, you know, are these areas here. So as I have that wet bottom, if I needed to, I could hang that off the top of my easel like so, so then that bottom edge doesn't, since it is fully wet now, so it doesn't want to glue itself down to the bottom there. But it doesn't take too long for it to dry. You can hit it with a blow dryer if you need to speed dry that up. I'm going to set this on the edge so that it doesn't glue itself way deep into there. And yeah. Well, I hope your painting looks great. Your black cat and bottle look very scary and mystique. And I hope you had a lot of fun painting with me. Definitely look forward to seeing pictures of your paintings that you've made with us. You can share those with us on our Facebook page or Instagram. And again, definitely check out our website to see what upcoming virtual paints we've got on the calendar. And if you've missed one that you wanted to do, I hope to soon have those up on the website in the shop so that you can purchase that, you can get the kit, and then a link to be able to watch the video and paint along. So if you've got any comments or questions about anything, definitely feel free to email or send message through Facebook or Messenger, and I can maybe address those things in the next virtual paint. Again, I had fun painting this with you. This is a great way to get started off to the Halloween season and get the fall feel. And definitely have some other Halloween ideas in mind. So if you're painting this with us in March later on, Halloween is a little ways away. But for us, it's just a few weeks away today. So thanks for painting with me, and I definitely hope to paint with you again, and definitely share those paintings with us. Share this with your friends, and if you'd like to do a private paint party with me, I'd be happy to do that with you online or in person, either in the studio or in your home. So let me know if you'd like to paint along one of those ways. So thanks again, and I hope you have a great night, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. Wait, I'm back. Forgot to say that when you're done, sign your painting. If your small brush isn't the best, I recommend actually using a Sharpie marker. I've usually always got one on me, but those work really well for putting those autographs and names on your canvas. I like to kind of tuck them away someplace, so I'm going to put mine right underneath the tail. Coleman 2020. What a year. Okay, now that's all. I just thought I'd share that last bit with you. So you didn't have any questions about how to sign it, where to sign it. You can sign it anywhere you want, bottom left, bottom right. Sign it on the side, sign it on the back. Just sign it before you sell it, for sure, definitely, so no one else can snag it and say that it's theirs. Something else that I'll mention is proper brush cleaning. Use a mild soap. Usually a blue dish soap works well. Put a little bit in the palm of your hand, and then you can work circles with that soap to gently massage that paint out of your bristles. And you want to go until there's no more paint coming out, and then you can dry them off a little bit and then pull those bristles back into shape. If you need to, and they're getting a little splayed, like mine has got a little couple of broken hairs there, you can use brush shaper. You can find some stuff at the store. You can find a recipe to make your own at home, but that helps to reshape those brushes to keep them in the best condition, because a good set of brushes should last you quite a while, many paintings before you wear those down, and you will actually notice your brushes wearing down. You'll see how you use your brush, and if you use one corner, it'll actually start wearing down a corner, and it'll become a wedge. So I'll leave you with that, and again, I'll see you next time. Have a great night.